your first step, you accomplished your first big achievement. If you think about it, you bear in mind that whosoever was present at that moment does remember your first step, but nobody remembers how many mistakes you made and how many times you fell down before taking that step. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Fatma Riaz, and I'm here to represent Punjab Group of Colleges, DHA campus. My dear fellows, open the eyes of your mind and have a glimpse of the history. From Winston Churchill to Andrew Carnegie, all the leaders of the world committed mistakes that jeopardized and crumbled the civilization of mankind. Winston Churchill charges into costly Turkish fight. Mahatma Gandhi signs away Indians' lives in World War I. George Washington muddles into a war. Andrew Carnegie listens to Henry Frick, the same person who was partly responsible for Johnstown flood, to lead negotiations in a very fraught atmosphere. As we all know, to err is human. Mistakes are engrossed in human sculpture. So in spite of focusing and get ourselves sinking in them, isn't it a good idea to learn from those mistakes and move on? Later on, the same leaders proved themselves worthy of writing their names with golden pen in the pages of history. Because nobody in the history has ever created history without tasting failures. My respected audience, even I know people who have lost all their confidence and hope for the future. There might be thousands of you listening to me who are done with their lives. Why? Because of one mistake? Ladies and gentlemen, life is like a cricket match where you are batting. There are no wickets, no wicket keepers, and no other players. Life is throwing balls at you, one after another. A ball came, you lifted your bat, but you missed it. What are you going to do now? Embrace that mistake, causing itching of your soul and self-being, or are you going to extract something out of nothing at all? Every ball that life throws is an opportunity. If you miss one, come on, just bounce back, forgive and forget. Forget the mistake, remember the lesson. Never, never, never give up. My respected judges, while supporting this argument, I would like to add on here that problem is not actually the problem, but our response and reaction towards it is the real problem and the biggest mistake. Ladies and gentlemen, now land the plane of your thoughts with me on the lands of subcontinent, where Muslims are indulged in the luxuries of life, whereas Europe is breaking new grounds of excellence and making new discoveries. Present-day Muslims can also just shed tears on their ancestors' actions. But you know what's better? To forget the mistake and remember the lesson. Now let me take you to a battlefield where the King of Scotland is being defeated and out of exhaustion and anxiety takes asylum in a cave where he finds a spider. Every time the spider tries to weave the net, falls down. Instead of losing hope and finding a corner to weep away from its caravan, she tries to accomplish the task. In the very end, I would like to ask, if one keeps on digging old skeletons, will he be able to make new connections? So the best preparation for tomorrow is doing your best today. So forget the mistake and remember the lesson. Thank you.
My words fly up. My thoughts remain below. Words without thoughts never to heaven go. Honorable Chief Guest, respected teachers, and dear audience, Assalamu Alaikum. I am very grateful to you all for gracing me this chance to speak on the topic. Forget the mistakes, remember the lesson. Worthy President, from the very beginning of life on the earth to this day, from man's journey from being nothing to being something, from man's status of savagery to man's status of modernity, from the age of darkness to the age of light, from the first human being to the last human being, from the first century to the current century, man has been continually making mistakes. Worthy listeners, it is not only I, but everyone believes that the lessons got through mistakes are the most memorable. They take us from darkness to light, unawareness to awareness, despair to diligence, confusion to confidence, perplexity to unanimity, imperfection to perfection, disappointment to delight, curiosity to confirmation, worries to no worries, negation to affirmation. Yes, worthy President, I do believe that we should forget the mistakes and remember the lesson. Dear audience, think about some of the most common things that you have learned in your life. For example, walking, cycling, cooking, dancing. All this you learned thanks to your initial mistakes. When you began learning to walk, you must have fallen many times. But at every fall, instead of being disappointed, you got up again, you learned from your mistakes, and you walked again. So, if you are striving hard to achieve something and are unable to get it, no worries. Mistakes are a part of our learning process. Mistakes are a part of the actions we take so that we can actually learn from them and make them a valuable experience for our next attempt. When Thomas Edison was asked that how he felt when he failed 1,000 times during the invention of bulb, you know what he replied? Edison replied that I didn't fail 1,000 times. The invention of bulb was 1,000 steps. So, this shows us that mistakes are our best teachers. Each and every error that we make is the secret key to the doors of our failures through which we can enter the world of learning. Worthy President, Einstein once mentioned that anybody who has never made a mistake has never tried something new. We can agree with this mathematician's statement because these are the new exposures and new experiences that make us learn new things. With every fall, we learn something new. If you are not ready to let yourself fall, sorry to say, you are not ready to let yourself learn something new. And if you do this, you will continue to have bad experiences until you will enter into a loop from which it would be very impossible for you to come out. So, worthy President, this then leads to denial, losing self-confidence, and blaming others for your mistakes. You enter into a stage of life where you only focus on the negative impacts happening upon you. Learning from mistakes is not easy. Nobody said it was simple. But once you do this, you trust yourself. You believe that you have the power to change anything. As Johnny Cash says, that I learned from my mistakes. It is a very painful way to learn. But without pain, the old saying is, there is no gain. Thank you very much.
As we all know that none of us is perfect. We're all bound to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. We all falter every now and then. My dear fellows, it is a common saying, to err is human. Mistakes are not mistakes, but not investigating and pondering upon them, it is. If we do not contemplate upon a mistake, we are bound to repeat the same mistake over and over again. Thus, we do not learn, we do not grow, we do not make progress. Einstein once said, anyone who does not make a mistake does not try anything new. The great mathematician was indeed very right, for it is the new exposures and new experiences that teach us the new things. With every new fall, we learn something new. If we're not willing to let ourselves fall, how will we learn something new? Think of some of the simplest things that you've learned in life. All this you learned thanks to initial mistakes. When you were learning to walk, for example, you must have fallen down many times. But instead of being discouraged by each fall, you got up again. Do you think that the best speaker in the world was praised for his first speech? Do you think that the best player scored a goal on his first attempt? No. My dear fellows, there's a huge misconception about success. We need to know that the more challenging the goal, the more difficult and frequent the setbacks will be. The more ambitious you are, the more dependent you will be on your ability to overcome and learn from your mistakes. My dear fellows, have you ever found yourself saying, I will never do that again, just because you encountered an apparent failure? If so, you're not alone. Many people equate mistakes with failure. My dear fellows, who would said, the greatest mistake that you can make is to be continually fearing making one. John Powell said, the only mistake that you make is the one from which you learn nothing. As we all know, the people who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Thomas Edison did not fail inventing a light bulb. He only made a lot of mistakes in the invention process. He learned from each of those mistakes. He persevered until the lessons learned from each of those brought him to a point of success. The light bulb turned on. My dear fellows, we all make mistakes. We're bound to make mistakes. I mean, look at Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. Do you think they were an overnight success story? No, you will make mistakes. Not once, not twice, but many, many times. Focus on learning the lesson from each of them, and each one will take you a step closer to success. Therefore, it is very important to re-examine how you view mistakes. By changing your perspective and finding what did you do wrong, you will be able to bounce back from your setbacks and improve your chances of success later. Today, be courageous. Make a mistake. Learn from it. Look at your habits. Change them. Move closer to success. Thank you.
In the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Merciful, Mr. President, honorable audience, this is Aqsa Zafar. Assalamu alaikum and a very pleasant good day. Today, I really feel privileged to express my thoughts on today's topic. Forget the mistake, remember the lesson. It's a well-known saying that amply depicts the character, thinking, and personality of a person. Whenever someone has a problem, they always question why. Why did this happen to me? Why is this my luck? Why? As if they are the first person to ever have this problem. Well, someone else has been there before, and that means that's good. It's good because that means there is a solution. A solution already exists. Dear audience, great leaders understand that people, including themselves, make mistakes. And they don't spend their time dwelling on this mistake or holding it over someone's head forever and ever. Instead, they forget about the mistake and remember the lessons. And make sure it doesn't happen again in the future. So what I'm really trying to say is, forget the mistake, remember the lesson. You are still here and you get another chance this day to do better and be better. Another chance to become more of who you were created and who you were want to be. A great life is built not by revolution. A great life is built by evolution. That is discipline. Small and steady wins the race. You cannot expect a positive life. You can't. If you can't talk negative and expect a positive life, you can't talk about defeat, regrets, and mistakes and expect to have a victory, that isn't possible. If you have a poor mind, you're going to have a poor life. Simple. Dear audience, you don't have time to waste time because time doesn't wait till you discover what's your purpose. Why you was here? Time is still moving. When do you start? You start right here. And when do you start? You start right now. You initiate the action aggressively. Dear audience, when you forget about the mistake, but you don't forget about the lesson. Because every mistake is a lesson. The bigger the cost, the bigger the lesson. As Mahatma Gandhi rightly said, you may never know what results come out with your mistakes, but if you do nothing, there will be no lessons. What I'm saying is that we are humans. We fall. We hold something. We get up again. That is life. We learn new things every day by falling or downing below. My dear audience, it is very well said by the master of Kung Fu, Bruce Lee, once said, do not fear failure, and that means we have to move on in every situation, no matter what. We must have to keep moving. We must have to keep learning by our own selves. Thomas Edison made 10,000 mistakes before inventing a single light bulb. His mistakes given him the lessons and the willpower of struggling that made him the inventor of the light bulb. Certainly, if we look back at history, it will prove that leaders like Qaid-e-Azam, Abraham Lincoln, Winston Churchill, Napoleon, Nelson Mandela, they matched their preachings with their actions in spite of the misery, mistakes and suffering of their masses. They brought their nation to the pinnacle of success and glory. Sir Edmund Hillary was the first man to reach the summit of Mount Everest. Hillary was successful because he thought big, he was ambitious. He faced many adversities and challenges on his way, but he forgets about his mistakes. He remembered the lessons he learned from his mistakes because he was determined. He was determined, so much determined. So he climbed the highest mountain on the earth, the Everest. Forget the mistake. Remember the lesson. I'm Aksa Zafar and thank you for watching.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, who's the most beneficent and the most merciful, respected judges and dear audience, my name is Sudha Habib and I am from Punjab Group of Colleges for Women, Rawalpindi. The topic of my speech is, forget the mistake, remember the lesson. Adam didn't wail on his mistake, rather learned from it. And not to disregard Allah's command again, he followed him. He followed his will. Choice has to be made. Respected judges, mistakes are ineludible, but escaping its shackles is not. We all make mistakes. We all are human beings and we are completely imperfect, but that's okay. The quicker one is back on the track, the wiser one is. Living so much in mistakes fetters a man's progress, and making no progress is a crime, root of all evils. To err is human, but not being able to retrieve one's credibility is equally a sin. We all make mistakes at some point in their lives, regardless of their age, position, or gender. It's been called human. We all have those situations or those moments in our lives where we said to ourselves, I wish I would have, I wish I would not have. These consequences, these situations, the piece of adversity, it doesn't define you. You define yourself. I mean, who would purposely do something wrong in their lives knowing that this would cause grief or turmoil? The answer is nobody. Because no consequence could be seen without you doing it. People who do not forget their mistakes, they place themselves into a self-imposed prison of fear and insecurity, which stops them from stepping forward and taking chances. On the other hand, those people who remember the mistakes they got from their lessons, they become victorious. A famous quote is, your every mistake becomes legendary when you succeed. You cannot have evidences, you cannot have results or excuses at the same time. Excuses are invalid. They're conjured up. They're fabricated. They're lies. Only the truth can erase them. And the truth of the matter is that majority of the wisdom and personal growth comes from those episodes in our lives where we did mistakes. Your mistakes teach you the areas so that you recognize them and you try to evolve. Evolve or die, you decide. If you don't forget your mistakes, you'll die. When we carry anger or regret or fear, this stops us, it blocks us from tapping into our full potential and stepping towards our future. If we focus on the mistake rather than the lesson, you can never grow. Those people grow, those people become successful who learn the lesson from their mistakes and do not repeat them. I would like to end my speech with a quote. It says, do not burn your future because of your past. Your past is fixed, but your future is variable. Don't live in it. Remember it only. You will transform and you will endure.